Biting the sand, beside the dragon carriage with its wheels roaring, clinging onto one of those ornaments, waving about the grasped knight sword, was the form of Julius, clearing away the approaching witch beasts. Julius, burdening Emilia-sama with responsibilities and such, cannot be done either, you see. Subaru, was that directed at me? Julius, that would be putting a halt to his words there. Julius had his knight sword meet with the claws of the approaching witch beasts. The decapitating slash weaved through the gap of those claws, and deeply gorged into the arms of the courtesan bears. At the same pace, the dancing tip of the sword pierced through the throats of the witch beasts, who let out screams, and as if a flash, it granted death by destroying their brainstem. That dance, with minimal destruction, was truly debonair. Julius, wrong. Successively crushing the witch beasts, Julius voiced what remained of his reply to Subaru while dusting away his sword. Subaru made a bitter face at that gesture, tasting reassurance and a sense of defeat. Simply, having put Emilia in charge of the long range, clearing away the close range was down to Julius. If that structure were to continue, the concern regarding the dragon carriage could be saved for later. Rather, the problem was, instead of other affairs, but in this course. Subaru, Biko, can you go for it? Beatrice, Subaru too, be careful that you don't run out of gas, I suppose. Above Patrusk, raising his body, Subaru held the reins with one hand, and the armed Beatrice with the other, and made her small body stand on top of the dragon. And steadily clasping each other's hands, something throbbed in the interior of Subaru's guts. That something, as if seeming sediment, wielded heat and slowly streamed from Subaru's body into Beatrice's. Beatrice, Minya. The crystals of violet materialized with the chant, and aimed for the witch beasts blocking the path ahead of the ground dragon's nose. Accurate aiming, momentary advancement, the outcome visible immediately afterwards. Raising a sound as that of shattering glass, the magical attack directly struck the witch beasts, and the crystals fragmented. However, the following moment, the bodies of the witch beasts fragmented similarly as well. Subaru, alright, good going, Biko. Beatrice, but, reckless firing cannot be done, in fact. Cautiously saving. Minya. Subaru, what about the cautiously saving? Beatrice's battle strength depended upon the mana left within Subaru. In order to oppose the overwhelmingly advancing threat, even Beatrice was unable to compromise much. Tasting the seeming sense of loss, as if his soul was being curtailed with every single attack of magic, Subaru, talkative and composed, abetted Beatrice's nervousness. Of course, such consideration was clearly visible to Beatrice. Melee, enough. Why did it turn out like TS? This could have been taken LOY. And, the one who had been keeping their silence till now, the final ordnance stood up and trod. A driver, having been sat beside Ram, Melee, with her eyes tearing up, surveyed the swarm of courtesan bears crowding around their surroundings while making a red face. And, she pointed a finger towards the witch beasts who would not obey her. Melee, I'll give a scolding to the bad animal sands. Come, sand earthworm. Subaru, no way. Immediately after Melee pouted and declared like a child, the desert that had been turned up thanks to the rise of courtesan bears, and with the underneath of that sand being stirred up subsequently, a big frame rushed out. Swallowed within the vigor of the gigantic beast pushing its whole body out from the underground, the countless courtesan bears dragged within were launched up into the sky. Falling on the sand from a high altitude, the witch beasts had their bones broken, and the unfortunate courtesan bears directly above that humongous mouth, got chewed up. Thrusting out while tearing apart the desert, the one laying devastation upon the repulsive flower meadow was that sand earthworm. Wafting the stench, raising a strange voice slashing through twilight, the sand earthworm determined the courtesan bears clinging onto the dragon carriage as its prey, and leaping with that big frame, minced and destroyed them at once. Melee, go, sand earthworm. Crush everyone, every one. Subaru, are you serious? Hey. Arius, hey. The weight, capable of creating rumbles in the ground, writhed through the sand sea, and the wails of the courtesan bears being crushed by the pressure of the humongous frame echoed. Courtesan bears too, did not possess a petite build whatsoever, but they could not possibly compete with the figures of sand earthworms, whose overall length could be even above 10 meters. The overwhelming masses turned into the outcome of collisions, and the courtesan bears got successively turned into corpses. At the circumstance which was a decisive battle between monsters at this point, Subaru had no words appropriate for it. Emilia and Beatrice's magic, Julius' swordsmanship, Melee's unusual talent narrowly cleared the way, and the dragon carriage and Patrisk rapidly proceeded through the flower meadow. Melee, ah. The sand earthworm is. Melee's shriek was heard. Observing it, the sand earthworm, possessed by a great number of courtesan bears who had their claws gouged into that humongous frame, was shedding large quantities of bodily fluids from its entire body, and collapsed on the ground. The outer skin of the slimy and soaking wet sand earthworm was not something as sturdy as that of snakes or insects. The skin sustaining the soft body easily fell prey to the claws, and a wail of agonizing death reverberated through the sand sea. Melee, next ni xt. Keep coming fa st. Once a single giant collapsed, Melee clasped her hands with a pallid face. And, lured to that, once again the sand was uplifted, and a different sand earthworm made its appearance. This time there were 6 at the same time, however, compared to the first one, they were twice as small, and if they were to get enclosed by the swarm of courtesan bears, they would get hunted down in the blink of an eye. Subaru, at this pace, HK. They would get outpushed in the amount of violence. With a sense of terrible hopelessness, Subaru desperately looked at his environs in search of something that could help them break out of this deadlock. And, he noticed. The watchtower that had been so distant, was close enough to be said that it was right before their eyes. Subaru, just a little bit left. If we can follow up to the watchtower at this pace. It was not as if the witch beasts would withdraw with this, but it appeared likely that there may lie some fearful power there. At that moment, it was not as if he had thought something special. However, if they were to follow up to the watchtower, he felt there may be the strength to break free of the deadlock of this situation. The spirit of hope was like clinging onto straws. And in reality, that was no mistake. Subaru, at this rate however, that strength was not something so convenient. It was the iron hammer which rained incessantly without bias upon all insolent comrades approaching the Pleiades watchtower. Pushing open his eyes desperately, supporting Beatrice while clinging to Patrisk, Subaru scowled at the watchtower visible in front of him. Sweat dripping along, the moment he dimly narrowed his eyes, Subaru felt a faint sense of discomfort. The core of the tower, something was visible there, as if shining. Subaru, what's that? He was unable to resume onto the final word. The luster bolted through the sky, and its aim unchangingly landed a direct hit on Subaru's cranium. At that moment, everything above the neck of Natsuki Subaru was blown off by the attack, and evaporated with the same unconsciousness. There present was nobody who could observe and raise their voice, at the tragic scene of a single moment. For some reason, those who would have had observed it, and those who would have had screamed at it, had been thoroughly pulled up by the root and branch. The earth-ground dragon which had lost its head, giving rise to a report, collapsed. Caught up within the vigor of the dragon carriage toppling sideways, the human bodies who had indeed lost their craniums were pulverized, shattered under the pressure, turned into chunks of meat. Only the pond of blood lay upon the sand, and the parched sand gulped down the blood spilt from the bodies. Before long, gradually, slowly, the fine particles of sand dragged anything and everything rotting on the sand sea down to their belly, and concealed them. The flowers of blood, as if the only visage of their journey, bequeathed the vivid colors. However, even those flowers of deep red, disappeared within the evermore swallowing sand. Here, the party greeted annihilation. 18 Thoughts on Arc 6, Chapter 10, As If a Flash. Anonymous says. August 27, 2019 at 3:01 p.m. Subaru, aw shit, here we go again. Reply. Anonymous says. August 30th, 2019 at 3:43 p.m. This is picking up. Reply. Anonymous says. September 2nd, 2019 at 4:56 a.m. Thank you so much. Reply. Anonymous says. September 13th, 2019 at 3:41 a.m. Aw shit, here we go again. Reply. King Explosion Murderer says. February 4th, 2020 at 3:29 p.m. Aw shit, here we go again. Reply. Anonymous says. May 4th, 2020 at 7:10 a.m. Thanks. Reply. Anonymous says. June 1st, 2020 at 11:41 a.m. Subaru is a pathetic, stupid, emotional, cowardly, deep shit. He can't start over once Amelia said who is Rem? He can't start over one NCE Amelia gets kidnapped, he can't start over unless he meets a dead end. Pathetic selfish dumbass loser. When you are being given a second chance, an endless number of chance. It's your responsibility to make the best out of that moment, If you are too coward to even do that, then you don't deserve a single extra second of it. Reply. Anonymous says. June 3, 2020 at 10:40 am. How you managed to stick with the story and read this far without paying attention is beyond me. In Arc 4 it's established that checkpoints are granted by Envy whenever her desired conditions are met, which always includes keep Amelia alive and some other task, such as defeat the White Whale. Envy does not care if Subaru loses his friend's well-being when this happens. Subaru only goes back as far as those conditions are not met. If Subaru killed himself immediately after hearing who is Rem, he would, at the very furthest, only go back as far as the Witch Cult 101 talk with the Mercs. At that point Rem had already been sent off along with Crush for several hours, too far along for him to catch up before Lei and Regulus attacked. Subaru literally couldn't kill himself after Amelia was kidnapped, as he passed out from blood loss as the fight with Sirius and Regulus ended. Several hours later, there almost certainly was a checkpoint, as Amelia was, for the time being, safer while captured by Regulus. Somehow, against all odds, you're in Arc 6 and still don't seem to understand that this isn't a story about the main character acting optimally in all situations. To clarify, Re:Zero is a character drama. Subaru isn't a Mr. Plastic Fantastic, he's a well-written, believable portrayal of a 19-year-old kid who's suffered an otherwise impossible amount of physical and psychological trauma. He feels pain when he dies. He's extremely averse to dying because it's only natural for him to do so. His character development isn't in getting more powerful or more used to dying, it's in getting wiser in how he acts up to that point. Reply. Anonymous says. June 13, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Asterisk hands over mirror. You're the dumbass loser. You're on Arc 6, yet you don't understand anything. Pitiful. Reply. Anonymous says. June 24, 2020 at 9:13 a.m. LOL you baboon. Reply. Anonymous says. June 26, 2020 at 6:14 p.m. I think that maybe you guys both forgot, but once Subaru saw Rem was in a coma he immediately committed suicide, but he respawned just a few seconds before his suicide and he didn't kill himself when Amelia was kidnapped.